There are some people, you know, who here, it's a kind of cognitive experience. Now, these obviously aren't as bad as the people for whom it's just a physical connectedness experience. But I worry about people for whom it's just a cognitive experience. Because they kind of have an attitude that, particularly when they go into schools and work with young people, that they're here to transfer what is in their head and what is in their notes into your head and your notes without it passing through the heart and soul of either of us. And at some predetermined date, you're going to have to churn it all back. And you'll only get a good mark if what you churned back was what I churned out in the first place. That's not surely what learning is all about. It isn't just cognitive connectedness. Do you know, I've done a tour for the last 2 years talking about happy schools. Happiness. I mean, it's probably the deepest emotional experience we can all have. We all walk the planet to be happy. But, you know, when I do this day on happiness, people come up to me at coffee time and they say, John, when you say happy, do you mean well-being? And one said, what is the difference between well-being and contentment? I don't care. I think if you're locked in that kind of world, you're in trouble. I actually said to these people, look, I said, being happy is being in a good mood and wanting it to carry on. And being unhappy is being in a bad mood and wanting it to stop. Will that do you? Oh, no, 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 no. You see, when you get children in a good mood in your classroom, their ability to solve a maths problem goes up by about 30%. We are far better and more effective as humans when we're in a good mood, when we're happy. I'll tell you how important happiness is. When Charles de Gaulle was the president of France, his wife was interviewed by a whole bunch of journalists. And she was asked, you know, the First Lady of France, if she could have one thing in life which would make her more fulfilled, what would it be? And without hesitation, she said, a penis. Now, isn't that an interesting answer? But of course, in translation, it was happiness. So it's so this is not a physical connectedness experience. This is not a cognitive connectedness experience. If you work with young people, it is emotional connectedness. I've got news for you. You know, they will all forget most of what we made them think, but they'll never forget how we made them feel. You see, there is a battleground at play currently in the world of education. Where do you stand on this continuum? Are you about getting results, or are you about profound learning? I'll tell you what, you can get results with shallow learning. Good memorization skills, loads of content, sit down, shut up, listen to me, and away we go. Shallow learning will actually get you quite good results. But that's not what I want for my children. I want my children to be profound learners. All that information you give them here, which is shallow, I want them to turn that into knowledge, because that's deep learning. I can apply what I did in maths in science. But when you can turn that wisdom, that knowledge rather, that application of the information into a thing called wisdom, now it's influenced the kind of human being you are. That's profound learning. And you know, are we about just telling the children what they have to do? Or can we, and are we courageous enough to have a child-led curriculum? Every child, I say to staff often, that's sitting in front of you tomorrow morning is better than you at something. Find out what it is. They all bring a curriculum to school with them. And you know, are we a play it safe a bunch, or are we threshold adventurers? Steiner wrote, a lust for knowledge and an ache for understanding is incised in the best of men and women, as is the calling of the teacher. There is no craft more privileged to awaken in another human being powers and dreams beyond your own, to induce in others a love for that which one loves, to make of one's inward present their future. This, he said, is a threshold adventure like no other. Where do you stand on that continuum? What about this? Satisfactory lessons and good lessons. Do you know, if you can ratchet most of your lessons up to a good level, you'll improve your results by 15%. That's all you have to do. You don't have to go to outstanding. Satisfactory to good gets huge results. And are we incrementally changing or radically changing? And finally, are we preparing children for a test or for life? Let me introduce you to Matt. Yeah, in the middle there, Matt. Yeah, that'll do. Go for it. Matt's world will be ruled by Brazil, Russia, India and China. Before his 40th birthday, the Chinese economy will finally overtake that of the United States. Do you know, his world will see 200 years of development in about 1 year. If he goes to university, when he gets to year 3, most of what he did in year 1 will be completely out of date. If he reads a quality newspaper for 7 days, he'll come across more information than he would have come across in his lifetime in the 18th century. He's going to live on average till he's 95. That's why there's a pensions crisis. He's going to be running around the beach well into his 80s, powered by body parts imported from abroad. He's not going to die of malaria, because the geneticists have just created a mosquito that when it bites you will vaccinate you against malaria. If he graduates, he's going to have 10 to 20 jobs in his lifetime. If he stays at school till he's 18, he's going to have 30 to 40. No such thing as job for life for Matt, just job for the life of the project. The competition, well, the pool of employees he's in now, because of the internet, is 5 times greater than it ever was. Danger from people like zippers, the 20 to 25-year-old Indian group. Young Indian people who are economically brilliant, they take risks and they break rules, and they're beginning to take over the world. He's going to meet his future partner online. He won't have to cruise the wine bars of Sauchiehall Street anymore. And for his 40th birthday, he's going to get a laptop which will be more powerful than the combined brain power of the human race. He doesn't use email. He leaves that for the old fogies like us. Like 96% of his peer group, he nearly got it then, he runs a large social network. Do you know, to reach 50 million users, it took radio 38 years. It took television 13 years. It took the internet 4 years. But Facebook had 100 million users in 9 months. Like half the teenage population in America, he can text with his eyes closed. He doesn't want to own a piece of the world. He just wants to visit it. And he's a minimalist like my kids. He needs a laptop, he needs a mobile phone, a change of underwear and a passport, and he's gone. Every book he'll ever need will be fitted onto a 2-inch square tablet. Every book he'll ever need for the rest of his life. And he's going to take his own children to museums. Do you know what they're going to see? Pens and paper, pencils, whiteboards, blackboards, and I suppose the odd stuffed teacher. But he's passionate about social injustice. He can, as the young people in the Middle East showed us recently, change the course of history. And he's angry that 1 child in every 4 seconds dies of a preventable disease. Meek and weakened by poverty, hunger, and preventable disease, most will die an invisible death, hidden from the conscience of the world, but not from the world that Matt wants to create. Do you know the world's biggest killer is diarrhea? But he has some questions for us. When will school stop being just about memorization of facts? Knowing what, he'll tell us, is not the most important thing anymore. Why is curriculum delivery linear? My brain doesn't work that way. Why is learning delivered in fragmented periods? Why is it that it's only halfway through a master's course at university that I can finally learn what I want to learn? And when will you stop linking my attainment to my chronological age? You know, will it be enough to tell kids like Matt to come in, sit down, turn to page 18, be quiet, and listen to me? The world is changing. This is how we're preparing our children for the world of work. Ben showed these figures in a slightly different way. I've tried to make them a bit more tangible. They're the 9 top activities that a Murray poll said, if you go to most classrooms anywhere in the world, that's what you'll find goes on in a classroom. The interesting thing is, they're the top 3. So 60% of writing in a classroom is copying of one form or another. Only 20% of talking is done by the children. And much of that is in the can I go to the toilet category. Do you know the average processing time for the answer to a question is about 1.2 seconds? What's the capital of France? Yes, Paris, good. Teacher moves on. Half the kids are going, what's France? Now, the reason why that happens is because we are good, conscientious professionals who prepare. But you know, if you've spent all weekend preparing Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, it's not up for grabs. I believe that over-preparation of learning kills creativity. So if there are head teachers in the room, they can actually cover their ears up. I'm telling you, you don't have to prepare as much. Ben is absolutely right. But you know, education has been described as 30 children coming in to watch an adult at work. Read the Lazy Teacher's Handbook. Get them to do the work. It's far less stressful. And the next 3 activities are those. And the 3 that we do least are there. And the one that's right near the bottom is the one that gives you more learning gain than anything else. Talking about my work one-to-one with a teacher. They're thirsty for the purity of our attention. So we have to change the way we do business in that changing world. Who are we? Well, that's who we are. And that's the world we live in. Great question. Now, when I was asked this, I kind of held my breath a bit. But I was a good teacher. Being the good teacher, you comment positively on the question. Brilliant question. And then you shut up. It's called letting the silence do the heavy lifting and pretending not to know. And he filled the silence. I just said, great question. Then he filled the silence. He said, teachers are stupid. And he looked right at me. I said, what do you mean teachers are stupid? I am one. Would you like to develop that point? He said, well, teachers are the only people on the planet who ask you a question to which they already know the answer. That's stupid. Now, when you think about it, can you imagine last night when I arrived from the station, if I'd said to a passerby, excuse me, can you tell me where the Crowne Plaza is, please? And they said, yeah, it's second on the right. And you go, I know, well done. And yet, even as we speak, that's what's happening in classrooms. He said, therefore, learning is just guessing what's in the teacher's head. I know what's in the teacher's head. I've got Google. But I still stayed quiet. And then Sarah put her hand up. She said, you're struggling with the answer for that, aren't you, Sarah? I said, I am, Sarah. Will you help me? She said, yeah. She said, I'm going to go to university to study history because Mrs. Smith didn't teach me history. She taught me the love of history. I think Google will always be able to teach you history. I just don't think it will be able to give you a love of history. That's Mrs. Smith's job. And that's your job. In a science lesson not long ago, the teacher just said, I'm not here to teach you science. I'm here to get you to think like a scientist. I'm not here to teach you maths. I'm here to give you a passion and a love for the magic of numbers. So, why do we live and work the way we do? Well, there are various reasons why we've kind of ended up where we are and why we are. One is that we tend to be single loop learners. This is a module we used to deliver in the master's course at Liverpool University. You know, I'll give you an example. You see, we have a mental model of the world, the way it is, the way it should be. And as a result of our mental model, we act. We'd be daft not to. And as a result of the action, there's an outcome. Now, the really interesting moment is when the outcome isn't the one you wanted. You've 2 choices. The safe choice is you go back on a single loop to the action and you try a bit harder. And you know that's the definition of insanity. To believe that by doing exactly the same thing, only a bit harder, you'll get a different result. The really courageous decision is to go on a double loop back to the mental model and completely rethink regularly and constantly and consistently the way you do business. I'll give you an example. This is a seaside resort in the south of England. A car went over the wall, but nobody was hurt, but the insurance wouldn't pay out till they got the car back. So, mental model, we've got a car in the water. Action, send for a crane. Outcome, we found the car. Outcome, put it on the jetty. Now, this outcome wasn't foreseen. So, Houston, we have a problem. Now, two choices. We can go back on a single loop to the crane idea and work a bit harder at it. Or we can go back on a double loop to the crane concept and completely rethink the way we do business. Well, what do? We have a meeting. There we all are. Oh, wouldn't you know they're all men, by the way? Do you know what meetings are? Stirring up problems. It's called the agenda. And what do? We send for a bigger crane. And we find the car. And we put it on the back of a lorry. And while we're doing that, one of these bright sparks says, let's get the crane back. No! No! Now is it time for some double loop learning? No, you just send for a bigger crane. Most of us send for bigger cranes, believe me. And you see, there is another reason why we are the way we are, and it's hard to change. We run our lives, most of us, on maintenance. Maintenance is kind of, I do what I've always done, so I get what I've always got. So it's Friday, I go to Tesco's. It's Saturday, I wash the car, watch Everton win. It's Sunday, I mow the lawn and visit my mother, homework 5 times, die. Maintenance-driven lives. One of my professor friends at the university said that, you're right, John, the only difference between a rut and a grave is the depth of the hole. Isn't that a cheerful thought to pass on to people? Do you know what else he said to me? He said, don't worry, John. He said, the size of the crowd at your funeral will be determined by the weather. My friend Sue, she's a retired head teacher. She said to me in High Dudgeon, I always go to Tesco's on a Friday. She said, I went on Tuesday last week. It wasn't the same. Do they move everything round in Tesco's on a Tuesday? She said, you know what I mean, John. You see, what you're being asked, I mean, what these next 2 days are all about is development. It's double loop learning. It's actually starting to really get to grips with the way we do business. You see, I'll share this with you. You know, once you start to really double loop learn, you'll start to see a different world. I noticed this the other day, how to fold a t-shirt. 7 moves. If you want to do it properly, in, sleeve, sleeve, over, round, down. Watch this. One. And 2. Hey! Do you know what? I've just ruined your evening. Your brain thinks. The brain thinks the way you do things today is the best way to do it. I've got news for you. It is the worst way to do it. If you can really grasp that, it is life-changing.